Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and at the moment I'm joined by Kevin and Mitchell. We may have Alistair join later, but he's currently in a game. I can't believe he started a game knowing that we were about to record the podcast. Honestly, he's probably going to lose because he did that. So,
yeah, but what the hell, man?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see if he joins, but I do have Kevin and Mitchell here, and we're going to just jump into it because as if we couldn't go a week without Tsm Drama, there is more Tsm Drama. And so you've probably seen it. I'm pretty sure you have. Everyone's talking about it. TSM, once again, in the headlines. Peter Zhang, who's been on that team for a while, just got fired because of conflict of interests, mishandling of money, playing like double agent. So the gist of it is basically that these Chinese players that were coming over here, Peter Zhang obviously being one of the coaches, he has input in who can come over, and he's trying to get players to come over. And the people in China, he would talk to them and communicate with them and make this side deal where if they came onto TSM, he would be acting as their agent and he'd collect a part of their salary from that. And then he would be getting paid as their coach as well. So definitely conflict of interest there. And so from there, lots of layers to that story, but that's kind of the gist. And again, because they've had this failed experiment so far, besides this past week with their new Chinese players, obviously we had Sword Art. It kind of makes us wonder now, all of the roster decisions were definitely being swayed one way or another because a person had interest into it. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on that. Really, feel free to add more stuff that I may have missed because this story is definitely deep. So go ahead, Mitchell. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's crazy because that's the key takeaways. This has absolutely had ripple effects on the roster of TSM for the last couple of years, and all of these surrounding rosters that were affected by basically where Doublelift ended, right? Doublelift might have never retired if Peter Zhang had done this, which I think is probably the craziest piece of history that we'll look back on, because I think Doublelift has made a really long YouTube video. He said a bunch of things in various clips. We're basically saying yeah, Peter Zhang asked Doublelift personally for $70,000 or something to help with his grandma's cancer, and then that he had money coming in to pay it back that was also from other people helping him pay his grandma's cancer. When Sword Art came over, apparently Sword Art gave him a bunch of money. Peter Zhang also, and then he was getting other players to lend him money, and we're just sending it directly to Sword Art's bank account. And it was how many red flags do you have to have for players and orgs to just be like, hey, this guy is super sus? Peter Zhang has been on TSM since 2018. That's 4 years. That's so long. That's that's when Doublelift went to TL. That's so long ago. 4 years of influence. Who knows what kind of damage he did. I cannot imagine basically how much of TSM's bad reputation was him versus sure there's Reggie and sure there's some of other players. Parth had a bad reputation not for being a bad person, but maybe a bad scout. Maybe it was all Peter Zhang influencing it because of the money he's getting, right? Yep. All the memes, all the things we think about TSM, we have no idea anymore. It could have just been this one guy, right? So I don't know. I'll let you talk about it, Kevin. I mean, this is just crazy.
So to add a little bit of background information, why this is so convoluted, the drama comes from Sword Art basically had a car. It was like an 80K BMW or something, or Mercedes. They wanted to get it sold because Sword Art went back to China to play in LPL. And Peter Zhang sold it, but didn't give the money. And so to pay him back, he basically, and who knows where the money went, but to pay Sword Art back, he basically was asking other people for money to, and then the reason why this is more so suspicious is when they were trying to wire the money, the few people that he knew that actually did it, they saw that it was being wired to Sword Art and not Peter Zhang or his grandma or a hospital or anything. Let's not even get into the whole talk about if you're paying 80K or 70K or 200K, which is how much he asked some people who weren't Doublelift. I'm pretty sure hospitals have payment plans.
Yes.
for if it was actually that expensive. Also, I've been to China. There's universal health care there. There's a lot of questions.
Wow.
But again, these are all alleged. We won't know. We might never know because
Yep.
he's in China. He can't be like China won't send him back if a
Yeah.
court asks to extradite him. So it's a little suspicious. A lot of suspicious. What I wanted to say though is like even if a lot of stuff that like happened were because of Peter Zhang, it still says a lot about the org. Unfortunately, like there is no world you say like. Yeah, Sword Art's worth $6 million, which now this explains so much. We were always questioning, like, is he really worth that much money?
Yeah,
like, he's
you're right.
good. He has a history of being decent, but he was not the best player at Worlds. He didn't even win Worlds, right? So where's $6 million coming from? And now that he's taking a % cut, how can he not afford his grandma's surgery if this is real? There's a lot of stuff that like you just red flags.
Doesn't
right?
add up. Just does not
And
add
so
up very quickly.
I don't want to get into the Schadenfreude too much, but I do. Let's conflict of interest. It's very interesting that TSM's like, oh, this is a conflict of interest.
Oh,
but we
my
also have
gosh.
TL star player Double Lift dating the president of TSM at the same time. Like this, I think TSM is riddled with this historically. Like who knows what the other connections are? We can only speculate what we can see, but the ones we can see are already kind of shit shows. Like we already don't talk about like the whole leaking Dardox like inability to get onto teams. That was thousands of dollars of reputational damage, if not tens of thousands, maybe hundreds, right?
He's not on a team anymore,
He's not
right?
He has to be a coach now.
Yeah.
And he could sue over that, but it's very hard to prove reputational. So I could talk forever, but like I think TSM, even though I think TSM's the victim here, I don't necessarily think that it's a coincidence it's happening to TSM and not some other org. I do feel bad for them here. Like you can't, from everything that you've seen in the industry, he's been around for longer than that. He was on like Echo Fox.
He was on LMQ since 2014.
Yeah.
He's been in NA since 2014. So this is
so like he can't
knows?
possibly have been doing this for the last 8 years, right? There, if you had to speculate, he probably something came up more recently in the last couple of years, and he started making more sketchy decisions. I would guess since Sword Art, probably like the money just got so big and it got to his head, right? Because I get it, he was the license, he found talent, and then he's like, hey, there's a lot of money here, and I can get a cut of this. So it's on TSM for not like knowing where their money is going. Like it's impossible that this has been happening for this long. If TSM was a well-run org, there's no way there isn't some accountant like auditing and like, hey, where did like
Q&A
hundreds of thousands of dollars go, or why are players getting asked for loans?
Yeah, I wonder, right? Like Peter Zhang was clearly a person of authority in TSM, which is probably explains why maybe he felt like he could do this to so many players, right? He's definitely abusing his position to confront players. And so it makes you wonder, like, why didn't Doublelift ever say anything before? Like, I know other players, they could definitely be like, I don't want to piss this guy off. Maybe I'll just give him the money or politely say no, but I'm not gonna like talk any crap about Peter Zhang, right? He's a part of TSM. He could really mess my stuff up. But Doublelift, like, I don't know. It just seems like why didn't he say anything about it? Like there's definitely been this trend where like something about TSM happens and then Doublelift starts talking about it, and it just makes me wonder that Doublelift actually probably knows all the crap that TSM gets into. He's just waiting for it to get publicly leaked so that he can jump on the train. And it makes me wonder how much Bjergsen knows, man. Like Bjergsen stayed there for this long. Like when we're talking about like TSM keeping Peter Zhang and being at fault for that, like there are other people there who stayed at this org for so long knowing these things, and it really makes you wonder like what goes on behind the scenes of League and all the crazy stuff. I think it's actually really a big, this kind of stuff hurts the community. This stuff really hurts NA. Like it makes us look bad, and it's like it makes us players not want to come here. Like not only are players not going to want to come to TSM, like it's like how many players used to be on TSM left for other orgs. We still didn't hear about it, and it's just actually just like a festering disease in a community that everybody knows about, but no one's saying. Oh my god, I would never want to go to TSM, let alone NA. Like fearing this kind of stuff. I don't know. I think it's crazy and very unfortunate.
I think maybe because, Doublelift also, again, is part of a conflict of interest, and maybe calling Peter Zhang out, I mean, it kind of shines spotlight on his, even though everybody already knows his conflict of interest. I mean, yes, this was back in the day, but even Lena dating Reggie and Lena was working for TSM, like that's, direct conflict of interest there. So it goes way back. It's like it's ingrained in TSM DNA because honestly, like a lot of times starting off, it is a lot of like, you're my friend, this is my friend, let's start an org together, let's, do this. And you're seeing this evolution where there is a lot of that kind of nepotism, going around. I mean, I'm speculating, I don't know, but just from watching it from the outside, friends know each other and it's a small circle. And so I think to see this happening kind of, exposes again, like that, there are things that sometimes people will cross that ethical line, because of their familiarity or comfort level with the org. And I think that's being fished out. Yeah.
Yep.
Money.
Yep.
So,
And,
I mean,
like,
go ahead, Kevin.
I would say TSM aren't necessarily bad people, by the way. Like the
Right.
people who were interested, including Reggie. Well, maybe Reggie's a bad person, but most of them aren't bad people, right? It's not like they came and thinking like, yeah, dude, we're gonna like just run this org to the ground. We're just gonna like burn money and like have fun. Like I'm pretty sure, like League Dai was saying, they probably had good intentions. They were friends. They started this org from scratch, and they're like one of the very few teams that are still like up until recently more so endemic esports like OG people run, right? Until like the last couple years. If you think of Liquid, if you think of C9, like a lot of these orgs are like run by adults. Like Steve is old. He's like 30 something, right? It's not that old, right? But I'm saying like compared to Reggie, he's pretty old. And so is Jack, right? C9 Jack. And these orgs are actually like have things in place. You might hire your friends, but you put things in place to make sure that these don't happen.
Right.
Like it was so ironic to watch, and I love Double Lift, but it's so ironic to watch him and like Lena be like, "Oh, it's a conflict of interest," like calling it out, and I'm like looking at the stream, and I'm like, "Oh, you guys are like, you're one to talk here."
The conflict of interest, yeah.
Yeah, like the fact that they start dating, and then Double Lift ends up on TSM the next year. I'm like, it's a
There's
little
definitely
weird.
something there. Yeah, definitely. It's like you can't convince me otherwise that there's nothing going on.
Like of course he's the best player, right, or the second best, depending who you ask that year. Of course you want him, and he's a superstar. His brand's big, but why would he leave Liquid after winning 4 championships? Like it's things that when the questions come up.
Girlfriend buff, man.
One bad split, right? TL.
One bad split. Your girlfriend's the president of the other org. He magically left the team, and we're stuck with
oopsies. And then, you also think about like they both jumped ship. TSM became an absolute dumpster fire, and Lita quit. Double Lift is retired. Bjergsen left to another team.
Parth gone too.
Parth gone. It's like and Peter Zhang's getting fired. It's like, damn, something actually happened last year that was just like, all these people are letting go.
Or it really is, as Double Lift was saying, it's kind of like the house finally falling, like because things are just getting exposed. And I mean, it's been so many things where it's hard to believe that it's just coincidence. Like everybody leaving at the same time, one right after the other.
It's not coincidence. It's just not.
They're also spacing it out 1 to 2 weeks so that they aren't overlapping with the news from the previous week. They're like, hey, I'm important. I directed TSM Legends, so I waited 2 weeks to say my shit. And then,
I forgot he left too.
I mean, okay, Peter Zhang's is probably not planned out timing-wise, right? But like, this is ridiculous.
Hey, we never know, dude. As far as we know, Reggie and TSM were in on the swindling the players and being their secret agents, and they just needed a fall guy when they got caught. We have no idea. All sorts of weird, shady stuff happens in big companies like that all the freaking time. Like,
it's our job as fans to speculate this stuff. We don't have NDAs. We're not beholden to the investors or whatever.
I don't trust TSM at all. Just 0%. If I didn't trust him before, I really don't now. I am like, who the hell's even running TSM?
Well,
Who's at TSM anymore?
So
do they have people in their facility? I don't believe it.
Let me ask you this then, because after everything had happened, right? I feel like, for me at least as a previous TSM fan, I felt like the direction that TSM was going is that they were really just able to retain or attract top talent because of their name and their reputation as an org, and kind of the historical aspect. It's kind of one of those storied franchises, right? And with each like thing happening this year with Bjergsen being gone, and then Parth leaving, and then even, I mean, with all these steps happening, like, does that degrade their value enough to where people are no longer wanting to play there? And now with this happening, like, At first I would say no. I was like, no, TSM's still, this franchise, whatever. But I feel like with this happening now, I honestly feel like what player will want to play in TSM? Like, they are kind of like are literally in the gutter right now. So that's what I'm going to ask you. Like, do you think their brand value has gone down, or do you think people will still want to play there?
I mean, just this year, we were rumored to get like Jensen Doublelift on the team, and Jensen
Mm-hmm.
Doublelift Vulcan, I think, right? It was just
Yep.
this year. Like, even though Bjergsen's leaving, and even though they didn't make it to Worlds last year, um, Doublelift was even considering coming back. Like, that's just crazy, right? To play.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I I have no idea what it takes to actually ruin a reputation like TSM's. It's really crazy. It's really hard. I definitely think it's gonna cut out. A lot of players are gonna decide maybe I won't go, right? We never saw TSM reckless. We probably definitely wouldn't now. And yeah, I think it hurts. But if I'm being honest, if they come up with enough money and they have one good year where they win again,
Yeah.
it's all gonna be forgotten. That's kind of how esports works. So, um,
Mhm.
but hey, their time is running out. Like it's not like Team Liquid where honestly, if Team Liquid has a bad year, like they don't make it to Worlds, fans have a lot of like built up like faith in the org, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna come back. We believe in TL. TSM, I mean, they're running pretty short on it. I think they're gonna need that good year. If they don't have that good year, I think it could be really dunzo for the org.
Sure.
Yeah, they really need that good year, or the fans will get tired out by them. And like,
Yeah.
for I mean, we see the model, right? It's CLG. CLG was a good team, a legacy great team, and you saw
Mm-hmm.
the very slow and very boring decline of the team. They had like a
Yep.
spike up in 2019, or was it 2018 now, when they had
It's
that BOE
2019.
roster,
Yep.
and yeah, and then they got crowned and somehow like, which is a big name, right, at the time,
Mm-hmm.
still, and then they just decline even more. I think TSM will still get talent. They just can no longer just sit there and let the talent walk over to them, right? No more sword arts, no more Zen Mythies. Like, do you think about all the giant signings they've been making like
Yeah.
over the years, right? And like these people were like superstars. When Zen Mythic came over, they were like really good still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like they were like a long history of being some of the best. And they came to NA to play on TSM, which was like, we still would meme them at the time, but they were still a super team, like in terms of like best NA teams, right? So now they have to pay up the money, or they will get talent, but they have to actually work for it. They have to like scout like
Yeah.
academy players, or like like lower tier players like Pride Soccer, who just came back to pro play, right? And is doing well, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of take risks. You can't just be like, hey Reckless, hey Mithy, hey Chovy, or whatever like they wanted to ask. Like those, no one's gonna feel that just because it's TSM. TSM has to work for it, and maybe they can do it, right? But there aren't a lot of people at the helm there right now, so it might be a blessing in disguise. Maybe they can get rid of a lot of the nepotism. They still have money. They still have a profitable business behind the esports division. So they just have to fund it and like hire some competent people. I'm not saying that old people weren't competent, but they're gone, right? So you need to hire new competent.
I have
Yeah.
been watching Travis Gafford and some other journalists, and they've been
Mhm.
saying that there's a new person that got hired on TSM who's been trying to go around and repair their PR relationships with different journalists and different people for
Mm-hmm.
interviewing and
Wow.
stuff.
Yeah.
So there are changes being made. I think that's interesting. And whoever this guy is, I think he's actually
His,
like
his name's Dominic, for reference.
Dominic. I think
Yeah.
he's like somewhat actually like known in other esports, just not in League of Legends.
Okay.
So kind of interesting to see that side. And also to hear that I mean up until this year, no org or journalist really enjoyed working with TSM and trying
Yeah.
to like interview
I
their players
think
or anything.
again to blame. I mean, I think that was Reggie. Again, Reggie was known for like not giving specific journalist interviews just because he didn't like them. And so he's done stuff like that in the past. It wouldn't surprise me that journalists would not want
You
to
reap
work
what
with
you
them.
sow, right? For a long time,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
could get away with it. Like their interviews were like exclusive. I remember one time Bjergsen was on like a Thorin show or something. I was like, what the heck? Or
Yeah.
Reggie was on a Thorin show once in like
Yeah.
2017 or 18. I was like, what the heck is this?
That's
I've
good
never
stuff.
seen Reggie doesn't even interview with Travis, man.
Yep.
Good stuff. They hate each other.
They
Yeah.
do. They
There's
do.
not a bigger TSM hater than Thorin.
There
Oh my
isn't.
gosh. Yeah. Well,
But
I mean,
to his credit, I don't know. Sometimes if you go back in time now, like a lot of his stuff he's saying, like,
Now it's kind of right. Now it's kind of like, oh yeah,
I
yep,
know.
yeah, like
yep.
he's an asshole, right? Like don't get me wrong, but I'm
Right.
like, he's a right asshole. Oh no.
Oh no, he was
Oh,
red
no.
TSM all along. Oh god.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about the Holy War like a year or two ago? And now I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Yeah,
Only one. Hey,
you
guess
know,
who won? Yeah, go ahead.
that's why it's kind of funny because I used to like not like Thorne because he was such a TSM hater. But daggone it, he's been right all along,
He's
man.
kind of
It's
right.
kind of
Yeah, I've
He's
never
yeah.
really
so
liked Thor
British,
either.
like
Yeah.
you don't like him, but like, but that makes sense. Or
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really makes sense. I mean, I guess
I hate you,
he,
but you're right.
well, okay, so maybe he's one of the few that, instead of being scared of TSM, he was like, well, I don't care.
he never had anything to gain from having a
No.
relationship.
So
in the
he was
industry,
the
for
only one
better
that
or for
was
worse.
he was the only one that was willing to say what was really happening or say what, he was seeing. So, hey,
Yeah.
good for him. I guess I owe that one back. But hey, look,
Yeah.
is this a coincidence that TSM, when all this is happening, they go 2-0? What the heck? And
I
they
Oh
love this
beat
yeah.
segue.
and they beat C9, who everybody after last week was like they're the best team now.
It
And
was a
I
weird
know
weekend, man.
I know TL lost too, but
Mhm.
come on, C9 losing to TSM, that means Team Liquid is still better, honestly. I mean, they may have beat
What
us,
a weird weekend.
but they lost to TSM. So, I mean,
That is
but
the worst loss you can have possible. By
It
the
was
right,
way.
that's what I'm
weirdest
saying.
weekend.
But I mean, look,
I
2-0. I just really want to get your assessment on them. I mean, obviously, they're still not going to make playoffs. But I mean, what did you think? I did hear on JLXP, like, apparently Jad had been talking with Tactical and he was really down on himself, and they kind of gave him pep talk and stuff like that. Pretty cool analogy. But
great pep talk.
what did you think in their plays? I mean, he finally did good on Zeri, so I mean, there's some improvement. But thoughts overall, it's not like they're really playing for much because who knows if this team will even be together in next split. But yeah,
The big adjustments is definitely Hooney's on carries instead of
yes,
Karma
and
every game or
Rumble.
whatever, and Rumble, right? He's playing carries, which he is actually doing fine in lane. I think people have forgotten, or maybe it's just been so long that Hooney's actually played well that
Yeah.
people have forgotten. Like, oh yeah, Hooney's actually supposed to be one of our premier top laners. He just hasn't been that for years now. But yeah, he's always been a decent laner. And I guess when he doesn't go for silly, stupid solo kills, he just kind of does solidly. So that's interesting to see. Um, but when we talk specifically about the Cloud9 game, I mean, is Cloud9 winning the game and then getting caught AFK in side lanes 7 times in a row? Do we
Yeah.
really count that as TSM being good at the game? Like, it's so hard for me to think that, like, yeah, TSM did something really well. They mind controlled Summit to go
Mm,
run it down in the side lane 4 times in a
yeah.
row. It just felt like Summit was playing Champions Queue. I mean, like I know you're supposed to take Champions Queue seriously, but that guy actually runs it down Champions Queue half the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, you see
And
the highlight clips, but there are definitely some low lights out there.
there's some real low moments. I think Azale was talking about a Champions League game where he was like 0-12 versus Someday at like 20 minutes or something.
Oh my
Like he
gosh.
just runs it down sometimes. He's just pure limit testing.
Mm,
And you know how earlier in the split we watched Abadage, Blue just walk up to Abadage and killed him
mm-hmm.
for free, right? FBI just got W'd by a Tom Kentriner turret and died to Biofrost. Like C9 turned their brains off for that game. And yeah, I don't know. Like yeah, they lost to TSM. They turned their brains off. Oh my god! If you watch the play and you play the game yourself, it was very disappointing and it felt like a non-game to me. It felt like yeah, good for TSM and it's kind of hype in the moment, but I learned nothing about either team. I really didn't. Yeah. So and then Immortals suck, right? They threw a ridiculous lead. I don't even know.
Yeah, see,
This
but I
it
mean,
made no sense at
okay,
all.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, so yeah, maybe the C9 game was them playing like dummies, C9. But I mean, they did come back against that. I mean, that was such a horrible. I felt bad for Spica, so bad
I
for him.
so paid, so much
that was
pain.
torturous, dude.
I don't even jungle
Yeah.
anymore, and that's one of the reasons why I was like, this sucks, man.
If
But
this
they
was
came
solo
back.
queue, the JG would have AFK'd like 95% of the time. Like
Yeah.
you need immense mental. You have to be like game
yeah.
5 of your promos to stay in that game.
Mhm.
That was really good for the mental warfare from Spica, but like Immortals mental warfare themselves. They got a big lead and they got ahead and they just AFK'd. They didn't do anything. So yeah, I think that if we were trying to debate who the worst team is, it was TSM and it is now most definitely Immortals. They
Wow.
are so
Yeah.
clearly the worst team to me. I
Dang.
I feel really bad because they have some great players on their roster, and I think Revenge is probably one of the better laning top laners out there.
Mhm.
But this team has the macro of 5 chimpanzees. Oh my god. Not even smart ones, like dumb chimpanzees. This is terrible. Um, seems bad. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, good for TSM, but
Good job, TSM.
you beat
If
5
I had
chimpanzees.
yeah, if I had one thing I could say about that TSM C9 match, I would be did anyone check the betting odds on betting sites?
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
not. I
right.
did
Yeah,
not.
like I
How?
know there were some rumblings about it was Peter saying like match fixing. Was that the conflict of interest?
Oh.
Oh,
But I'm like
oh.
did you see that C9 game? Like was C9 like
Summit was match fixing the crap out of
Summit
that
was
game.
max bet C9 loss
Oh
20
my
to 1 odds. Like I'm
Max
serious.
bet.
Like I obviously I'm joking, but like seriously watching those matches, like I don't lose that much opinion of C9 from that match. Like that was C9.
Yeah, me neither.
Like Liquid does this all the time, right? Where they
Yeah.
just throw a bit, but like they usually come back. This was C9 doing the throw. Like after a while, like wait, TSM's like kind of playing correctly. What the heck?
Mhm.
Like this is like when you're making like you're playing with your brother in Smash. He's like 7 years younger than you, and you're like, oh, I'll let him win, and you're like down 3 times, and then he like
Yeah.
magically decides to be smart, right? And you're like, oh shoot, okay, I guess I lose. Whatever, I don't care. Like, I don't think C9 loses too much rating from that. The only things you could take away were that, like, yeah, I mean, Summit's always died like this a little bit, like just in some matches, but then he gets it together, right? And this was a match they just didn't care about. They're locked in for playoffs. They ostensibly are still a better team than Liquid right now, but it does hit them a little bit in terms of the infallible, can't lose a game, perfect macro thing. Like, honestly, Liquid may have been able to come back against TSM in some of those scenarios. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really easy to say, but
I
holy
believe you,
moly, that
Kevin.
was egregious.
Yeah.
I will give TSM credit. They finally learned how to do things like the basic, like the expected standard, right? They're like probably like that was like a fifth place team, fourth place team playing there in terms of those games.
Mhm.
They picked up the crap that TSM or C9 threw, right? And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
good for you. And the fact that they beat Immortal 2 means that they're definitely not last anymore, which is a big improvement. There might be some life in that roster. Imagine if this roster had Jensen or like Niski or like somebody on it. It's like
Yeah.
Takeover is fine, but like imagine if they had a star mid laner to like anchor this team. There might be some life in it. But honestly, I think I'm excited to see the off season, right? Second
Yeah.
regular split ends, like TSM cut some contracts. They unless Kaido got good, which I don't think he did in Academy, they cut him, get a good player in mid. If they
Dude.
can, right? And maybe they'll
Yeah.
have like a playoff chance next split.
I wonder how much K2O and Shen Yi being on the roster was Peter Zhang, right?
Oh, yeah, for
that's
sure.
that's the whole. They're all
Although
Chinese. That's
Shinji
like
played well this week.
Yeah.
Like, specifically, he had a good week.
he played well. Is he Vulcan though? I don't know, man. What if we got that TSM roster, right? Like,
If he Vulcan, no. If you paid but because you were paying maybe Vulcan money, including the buyout, like that's a problem. Right?
yeah, that's a
the
problem. And then we could have had Jensen and Doublelift still in the league, right? Like,
Oh,
come on,
God.
man.
It would have been
That's-
exciting too. We would have
that's
had
so
Speaker Huni
upsetting.
in the top lane, right? And then
Yeah. And
Oh,
then maybe they replace Hooney in the offseason. Oh, please.
That's
Oh,
right.
don't even get me there. I
Yeah,
will
I mean,
just.
you look at
So
you look
cool.
at C9. They went and got young talent from Korea, and
Yeah.
look how that's working for them. You know, who knows? Again, with the Peter Zhang thing, trying to get his influence in the Chinese.
Maybe they
amateur
got the
spot.
worst talent. Maybe Peter Zhang was like, I'm gonna leave TSM anyways. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
the worst talent.
To TSM's credit, though, like they did get sorted right after he got to World Finals, right? Like that's actually very hard to do. Like traditionally, it's very hard to just
Right,
grab
that's true.
a top player right after. Like even if Sora didn't play that well, he wasn't garbage, right? He was still like
Right.
top 5.
Yeah.
And like he could have been even better if they let him shot call or whatever it would have been. So they saw that like, okay, if you could get Sorda right with your connections, whatever they may be, which is $6 million is a good connection. Maybe he like is good at something, right? So I see why TSM chose it. They took a gamble, and we're not going to be revisionists, right? We also said like, hey, this could work or this could be
Sure.
garbage.
Yeah.
And it was garbage.
Yeah.
But I give TSM credit for finally being the first team to be like, hey, why does anyone just scout from LDL? Like, if LPL has so many good players and LCK's Academy has so many good players, we've never touched LCK Academy basically ever, and we've never touched LDL basically ever. And finally, 2 teams did this split and 1 hit heads, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, Winsome's a big L to me, to be honest, right now. So
I don't think Winsome's that bad. I think Winsome's he makes some weird decisions at certain points, but I feel like he's a great team follower. and he's got good mechanics. So if Winsome could just not make weird boneheaded decisions when C9 is in awkward positions, I think he'll be pretty good. But um, it just
That I
kind of
can
seems,
agree with. If
yeah,
he
he
was
kind
an
of just seems to
import though,
panic.
he'd be very bad.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. But yeah,
Again, he's only been
yeah,
playing for 2 years, right? So
yeah, not that long.
Yes, but you're
yeah.
signing him to your C9 like super
Yeah, your
expert.
superstar
True.
roster. Yeah, he's definitely the weakest link. Like you can tell Winston is freaking panicking when he doesn't know what to do. Like he'll just like engage and you're like, dude, that was not it. That was not it at all.
His best
Yeah.
trait is his green card slash passport, whatever it is.
I
That's a
think his
good
best
position.
trait is following along with the team and not running it down when his team knows what to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
Sometimes just let
that's
yourself
actually
be
fair. And it's
carried.
not that
Yeah.
it's actually not that easy to do.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. You kind of have to be like, hey, I know I'm Nautilus, but just don't press Q. I'm just gonna wait
Yeah,
for
just
someone to do
wait.
something.
Yeah. Let it
Yeah.
I
come
know
to
I'm
you.
tactical, but just don't go over that wall one last time and you'll win. When he did that Zeri wall over where he hit Zanya
Oh,
and
yeah.
almost like
Oh my
out of
goodness.
winning game, like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well,
good stuff.
we'll have to see because TSM and Amor. I think TSM has the harder schedule, so they might not end last. Who knows?
They
He
might
has
not
the
end
hardest schedule,
last.
though. They have
Yeah.
TL 100 Thieves and C9, so
Yeah, that's pretty
There-
tough.
have a worse.
There is, I think, one scenario where TSM makes playoffs, and it's all the people that are tied for seventh or whatever have to like lose all their games or something, and they have to win all their games, and then a bunch of weird tiebreaker scenarios have to happen also, and then they can make it in. So
That would be insane. I mean,
that would be cool.
I don't think that'll
I-
happen, but hey,
I'm hyped for that one. I
Yeah.
want that timeline. That's the timeline I want.
oh boy,
And we have Alistair coming in hot.
Coming
He heard
in
us
hot.
talking about the
All right.
TSM timeline.
the first thing I need to know, Alistair, is did you win?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
We were all well, I thought
Boo.
you were gonna lose because I was like, how dare he start a game we're about to record? But
Bro, I had
man,
school
I'm
stuff, right? It's
I'm,
not my
I'm,
fault.
I'm glad you got some LP there. Hey, yeah, so we're just talking about the TSM stuff. You missed some good TSM bashing. That's all right. But we're
lucky.
talking about their games. We're talking about their games now, and just saying, like what we think about them. Honestly, I don't know. They could not end last, but I want to talk a little bit about 100 Thieves because here is that team again, who, as inconsistent as they are, they have been eking out some wins, and they went 2-0, whereas C9 and TL obviously 1-1, some pretty bad plays. But what are your thoughts on 100 Thieves? I mean, they had that 10% chance, I think, to maybe get to win it all. But does that percentage increase now? Like seeing them, are your thoughts changing, or are they just kind of getting lucky here?
I would say let's wait for this weekend when we see 100 Thieves play Cloud9. I mean, bit of a cop out, but that's the way I see it right now. I don't know if I'm imagining that Cloud9 and TL both had a pretty rough week. I mean, I think the Cloud9 loss was pretty inexcusable, to be honest.
We were just memeing that. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I assume
They're just hard trolling. They're just AFK
it was.
in
I don't know what
silence.
to say about that. And the TL loss to FlyQuest, I didn't actually catch it yet.
Oh, that's an awkward one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine some goofy stuff happened.
Yeah,
That was an
That's
awkward
one way
game.
to put it.
Yeah.
goofy.
Yeah. 100 Thieves. Yeah, I mean, I still give them a decent shot. Obviously, I favor TL and Cloud9 for winning the whole title, right? But I still give 100 Thieves a decent shot. I think when I don't know. When I just think of FBI and Huhi, I'm like, there's no way this bot lane is this bad. Even this weekend, I felt like against EG, FBI and Huhi still had some questionable choices. But I mean, they won and they played it pretty well, and they're pretty active around the map. I definitely think that Abadage, I think he can continue to kind of be still a bit of a role player. That's fine. Maybe he's adjusting to not being the superstar anymore like he was for one split last year. But this team, if they can get FBI and Huhi together, some days on another level. I mean, he flash autoed and stole the Elder Dragon, right? Like, this guy's just actually solo carrying his team. I think they have maybe an okay chance of winning the title. But that EG game was real messy. This whole weekend was just absolutely the quality of NA dropped substantially. I am
Oh
seriously
my.
questioning our international chances
I mean,
after
part of it
watching
is
it.
I mean, we've said it before. This meta is kind of like that. I'm not excusing all the plays that are made, but it is a super messy meta.
Yeah, it's a weird meta. I don't even know
You
if
know,
it's
it's bad
really
when
figured out.
Nimir is picker ban.
Yeah,
Across all the major regions, like there's just been a lot of games that look like this. Even in like LCK and LPL, especially LPL, but LCK too. Like there's just like a lot of games at a high level where it's like, with what is going on, y'all? And then with objective bounties, you can actually come back as long as you like do enough messy coin flips and get yourself back in the game. This is the season we've seen the most like ridiculous comebacks, right? 100 Thieves has like one of the least in like most underwhelming 5-0 like stretches in a while, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they almost lost to like GG, was it last week?
Mhm.
The game against EG was ridiculously close. I think it was Soul Dragon
Yeah.
he stole. Maybe he also stole Elder. Honestly,
Oh,
they're
he
just
stole Soul. Yes, he
yes,
stole
and
Soul.
then yeah,
Yeah,
but it didn't
yeah,
let them, unlock Elder, which is a huge deal for how that game ended.
yeah, yeah.
I think EG actually looked like they had signs of life, which is actually pretty interesting. But 100 Thieves, they continue to be like just good enough to like skill check all the teams underneath them. The way they got absolutely bodied by Liquid, who's like not even got their stuff together yet, 5 games ago. So before the streak started, they got smashed by Liquid. Just to remind the audience, makes me think I don't think they can win the title, but I think they can be like they can play spoiler to like they could beat Liquid, but they won't win the title. As in like Lightning won't strike
Gotcha.
twice.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They're
I
good
can see
enough to
that,
be
yeah.
like to beat a slumping team like on a bad day. Like, oh, maybe the playoff patch sucks. Or maybe the team's just like got a bad read on the meta, which happens, right? See, I had picked 3 games at Ezreal Yubi before because of scrim results.
Oh my god.
And lost 3-0, right? So anything can
Yeah.
happen in playoffs. People always forget this because of best of ones. But I don't think that Lightning will strike twice. 100 Thieves is not good enough for that. I think there's a low bracket this year in the swing split.
I actually loved hearing that insight. I think it was on the JLXP talking
Yes,
about
yes.
that Cloud9 roster and the Ezreal Yumi and how, oh my, they just got screwed over in scrims once by Yumi and they completely warped their idea on the meta and they just played, for some reason they played full bot prio with Ezreal Yumi and lost every single game. Oh my
I
goodness.
think the story essentially was like GGS or something like played it and like they either almost won or did win. They're like, well, if that team can be like, assumedly, they're allowed to be like, well, if that team can put us to the brink with Yumi, it must be busted. And so they
Yeah.
picked it with Ezreal 3 games in a row. We're just very stubborn about it. This was the reboot scene, to be fair.
Yeah, because this C9 roster was looking, they won spring, and then they were looking absolutely unstoppable going into summer, and then halfway through summer, they were like 9-0, and they just started losing everything. Yeah.
the
Man.
classic.
The class, that was like, what, 2 years ago? Ah, man, time flies, time flies.
Yeah.
All these rosters.
Okay, so I want to talk about Golden Guardians because, again, this was that team where they were kind of good, then they were losing a lot, and you're like, yeah, okay, it's not going to work. And then they go 2-0. And look, they are one of the teams, tied at 7-8 with Evil Geniuses and Dignitas. I mean, could they make playoffs? Like, so I think it has to either be EG. Right now, it would be either EG, Golden Guardians, or Dignitas. There's only 2 spots there. Who, does Golden Guardians take one of those playoff spots?
It's rough. I mean, they play IMT, they play EG, and they play TL. So best they can hope
TL's a
for is
loss.
2-1,
Yeah.
unless TL screws it up.
How do we know that it's a loss to TL? They beat TL in the first round robin.
That's true.
Guys.
That is-
They actually haven't lost to TL this year.
I mean, at the
even
same
lucky.
time,
I don't remember. I just
I
threw that
don't-
out there.
I'll just be honest. I don't think there's any chance. I think Dig is out. I'm gonna say it
Okay.
right now. I think Dig's gone.
100%.
Golden Guardians and EG are gonna be the 2 teams that make it.
Okay.
Dig plays TL, Cloud9, and 100 Thieves this weekend.
Oh, they're
3-0.
okay. So they're
So-
pretty much out. You answered the question. Okay.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's just I don't see. I think just Golden Guardians just make it de facto.
Okay, well, since we know that that's pretty much they're going to be in, let me rephrase the question then. Like, do you think, like, because again, this is just like 100 Thieves, I guess, but with a less notable roster, I guess? Like, are they good or are they bad? Because they've shown glimpses of being good, especially in the early game. They've shown that their mid game is okay, but then their macro late game is just terrible. They can never close out. So, Mitchell, let me rephrase it for you. Like, is Golden Guardians good, not good, or can they? Do you think they will get good in going into the playoffs and maybe make some noise in there?
I think that to be a good team, you actually have to be able to win the game at the end. They have
Mm-hmm.
good early games, doesn't make you a good team. You have good mid games, doesn't make you a good team. So that, because I think that for some other teams that I see play, I might make the excuse for this team. Their late game is so horrendous that I actually can't say they're a good team because they really do throw some of the most
They do.
ridiculous games you've seen. Like this year, it's been that team that throws the really, really weird ones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that Licorice is like this player that sometimes he gets really, really ahead. Sometimes he's the reason their team loses. But
Mm.
when he gets really, really ahead, they have no idea how to win the game. We see it stall out for so long. And I think GGS was a part of that famous no one touched top wave for 12 minutes
Yeah.
straight, right?
Yeah.
Like, that just screams to me that this team is very, very new. And even though they have players who've been on teams for a long time, like Licorice, they are not. They're clearly not. They were never like the leaders or the shot callers of their own rosters, right? Like this team feels like they lack direction, and I think it's actually all up to Pride Stalker, who I think is their best player.
Yeah.
He's going to be the one that, as they improve, they will. Yeah, they'll get better. But for this split though, I think I no, I don't think so.
Okay.
It's gonna be next. I think next split. I'm banking on it now that they can make some real damage, but
Okay.
they're just too. They actually, I think even when they win games, they really don't know what they're doing. I think they kind of get lucky that a random fight starts for them and they're ahead and they have decent mechanics. But besides a random fight breaking out, they don't know how to end games. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'm with Mitchell. I'm buying the stock option for Golden Guardians for next year or next split.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that if you just remember how best of fives work, like first of all, I think they're gonna make playoffs because Dignitas has just got a hellish road. But if you ever look at best of five, that's when people are like, oh, let's just scale the late game and see what happens. Yeah, the team that is gonna scale the late game, I don't think Golden Guardians is the one you want to bet to win 3 out of 5 games scaling to late, right? Like they
Yeah.
might get those leads, but they will probably throw more often than they won't. That being said, if they do get into a matchup with like FlyQuest, I think they could beat them, right? Like they do have enough raw skill on that team, and FlyQuest does too. That would be a good game. It would actually be close, and they would be paired. But against
Yeah.
any of the top teams, any of the top three, it's just not going to be close. They will just get smacked.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, they won't do damage this year, but they could be, a spoiler to a team in some split when
There's-
it really will be scary.
There's no
Yeah.
TSM in playoffs, right? So there's nobody for GGS to embarrass. So
Yeah,
You
they're
just
not
like, can we beat TSM again this year? And they're like,
we can, yeah. Monkey's paw, yeah.
Okay.
But
Is there
I
any?
really like that this team has like a good idea of what they want to do. Right, they're proactive. They try their best, and then they just end a macro at the end. But
Pride Stalker is legit. That guy's a real
He's-
player.
He's good.
imagine if he was on a good
yeah,
team.
he's good.
Like he
Yeah.
could actually be a top 3.
That guy's actually good. So I think he's got a large champion pool too, and he can play in multiple styles. I would love to see him on a really good roster.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. Is there any final teams that you guys want to talk about? There's still EG and Fly kind of fighting for fourth, I
wanted
guess.
to flame Liquid real quick.
Oh,
just-
okay.
Oh, we
What?
haven't talked about
Whoa,
Liquid.
Okay, yeah, let's
because of that FlyQuest game. Like it was a
Yeah,
good
that's
news. So the good news is Bjergsen did well. I actually think his early game was great. He has so many good
yeah.
roams. He got everyone ahead on Ari. It was just like rare, right? And then they
Mhm.
just threw that game in like another just like confusing way. Bippo hasn't had like a super carry performance
Yeah.
in weeks now.
Good point.
He's kind of been a liability, and like you can keep laughing it off until like if it keeps to playoffs though, then I'll be concerned. But
Yeah.
yeah, Liquid just like continues to get leads, really good leads, and very clean early to mid games for like relatively speaking. And they have a great game plan, which means the coaching in my eyes is good. And
Yeah.
then they get to mid late, and then they just decide to have fun, and it's getting to be concerning. All I can say is that if C9's game didn't happen, this would probably be a lot bigger of a deal. But FlyQuest isn't a terrible team. They're like top 5, top 4.
FlyQuest is not TSM. We'll say that
Yes,
much.
Exactly, right?
Sure.
TSM who just lost their head of player development. All the drama every day is a banger. at
Yeah.
TSM. I love that
2-0. Every day's a banger. 2-0.
Every day's a banger.
Every day is a banger. So
It-
I think Liquid needs to get their stuff together, and I think they will still in playoffs. But like, we can't just keep giving them a free pass if they do it week over week over week it the same way. It's not like Hansama did something different this week, or Cord like decided to stop playing the game. No, it's like it's similar issues. So like, there's no excuse, right? Well, other than they don't care and they don't want to show off strats, and they're in playoffs. They know they can run the lower bracket if they have to, or whatever. But
Oh.
I
Well,
don't
I
think
mean,
they're good enough yet that they can do that.
I think the consolation is that Bwipo was pretty darn good on Tryndamere. I mean, he had that one play, but
Yeah.
I will say that this has kind of been the coin flip, I think, for many people when seeing this roster on paper, right? Like, we know Bwipo can have potential to carry, and I think obviously that would look like the game plan. Put him on Lucian, they're gonna get him fed, and they did. They got him ahead, but they just didn't know. And he, to be honest, he did tweet later, like he knew that he let the team down because they fed him, they got him ahead. That was the game plan, and he couldn't execute. So he knows that he messed it up. But I mean, do you really want to? To me, honestly, I would love to still try to play through bot lane just from
I
Hans
think
Sama
they
and
know.
Core. Okay, yeah.
I think they know. Like we've heard teams like Double If teams talk about this
Mhm.
a lot, where he's like, we just play through bot and we win. We know we're not dumb. We get it. We can
Right.
play standard. I definitely think this is them trying to like spice things up, because come playoffs and it's
Mhm.
like you're against C9 and it's like you're actually in finals and like you don't want to lose a game.
Yeah.
They're just gonna play through bot lane. Like they might play through top lane, and if they lose that game, it's just play through bot for the rest of the series. So I think they know. I mean,
Okay.
this is regular season. They're experimenting.
Yep.
This team is very smart. I mean, I think the real conversation is not like whether Bwipo can carry and whether or not, because it's not Bwipo being fed. It's not like the reason why they're losing these games.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the reason why they lost this game in particular was they just didn't recall. They just kept sticking
Yeah.
around, and
You're
then
right. Yeah.
FlyQuest they died and they TP'd
Mhm.
and they flanked Team Liquid and they turned an 8k gold lead into a win, like an 8k deficit into a win.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the problem isn't like, okay, honestly, yeah, playing through Whippo has been a little lackluster, right? If that was Lucian or Hansama's Lucian that got that fed, game was probably over. Whippo, yeah, but like, was it the problem? Did they lose the game because Whippo got fed and he wasn't doing damage? No, they lost because they made a really bad macro play and they couldn't get out of the hole they dug themselves. I don't
Yeah.
I
I mean, I
it's
think,
it's hard to
and
say.
I was thinking about that too because, you mentioned, I mean, obviously this was a comeback game for FlyQuest, and we've been seeing a lot of comebacks. And I have heard, I think maybe it was on the dive, this discussion about objective bounties. And like, I think Kobe was saying that, hey, we're going to see a lot more comebacks and it's going to be less impressive because of objective bounties. And
Yeah.
and so a lot of them were, the point is, a lot of them were kind of like, not too positive on the whole idea of it because we're seeing all these comebacks and makes it less exciting because teams can play around this, saying like, okay, we can just sit back, get these objective bounties, we'll be right back into it. But just hearing you speak about this, like I kind of fall on the other side now because Team Liquid, or any team for that matter, with a lead like that should not be allowed to make mistakes like that and then still be able to win the game. Like, it does make it so that you have to be on your game early, mid, and late. Like, you may mess up and hopefully it's not too big, but if you're just playing around and not executing to close out the game, then you should be punished. I mean, I think that keeps you honest, like, yeah, don't mess around, but end the game. So I don't know, like, what do you guys, that kind of just opened my eyes to that perspective. And I think now I actually agree with objective bounties because I think good teams should be kept in check.
I completely agree, and I'm pretty comfortable in saying I think I'm in the minority. Ever since the inception, I've loved the concept of objective bounties. Um, I can understand how it's annoying, but at the same time, if you're winning a game and you're just constantly losing because they get objective bounties, it's not because they get objective bounties. It's because you screwed up.
Yes, that's right.
Whether it be solo queue, whether it be pro play, I can understand the annoyance, but if they're getting if they're getting a lot of these objective bounties, that's on you.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I see where you guys are coming from, and then I also see where the other side is coming from. And I think, like, the thing that I like to highlight that I don't think is said enough is like the amount of work that you have to put in to get a lead. You have to play well for so much,
True.
and it feels like I think that it can be frustrating if you
Hmm.
can be doing everything right, and the opponent is making mistakes the whole game, and they actually you make one mistake, and they make one good play, and then they get to come back and make it close to even. So the parity is like, yes, you have a gold lead and it makes it easier to continue to push and win the game, but all these you get to do all the right things and you make one mistake and then the game's suddenly back to even. The other team's perspective is they're making mistakes all the time. They make one good play and now they're back. I think that can be very frustrating
Yeah.
to think about.
I mean, I can understand that, but at the same time, it could be they're making a bunch of small mistakes and you guys are making a major mistake.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
my counterpoint.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, if they make a bunch of small mistakes, that could just be the equivalent of one major mistake, right? Because if you're slowly getting, these 100, 200 gold leads, and then you make a major mistake that's worth 2 or 3,000, I mean,
It's true.
I
It's just
also
that 2 to 3,000, the disparity, that actually turns into 4 to 5,000 because of gold
no, I know.
bounties, and it's
I
just like
completely agree.
that.
But
I think
usually the
like
gold lead is that anyways, which is something
yeah,
they've already made those small mistakes, and then you make a major mistake that's equivalent to that.
yeah. My
And
my
usually,
my point of view is
yeah,
just trying to find the correct balance between those two things, right?
yeah, no,
Where
I completely
yeah.
understand.
So I
well,
think we're all on the same page in that
but
area.
so
It's like
you got me thinking again. Sorry, Kevin.
yeah.
Kevin,
all
you
good.
definitely have put your 2 cents in here. But I wanted to actually build off of Mitchell because it got me thinking. Right, like you were talking about how like this disparity. But honestly, I think in solo queue, I think the whole point, and I think Ryan even mentioned this, is that part of the objective bounty was to make the losing team, and we're talking about solo queue here, like the losing
Mhm.
team feel like we could still win this. It's basically trying
Mhm.
to, in a sense, combat that whole like weak mental, like, oh, we lost the early game, let's go. Well, now that we know objective bounties exist, no, look, anything's possible. And again, in solo queue, teams aren't the best at closing out games because that's just solo queue. So
Yeah.
maybe it might be, and I don't know, I don't think this would happen, but maybe it's objective bounties needs to be something in like pro play, whereas solo queue, I mean,
In solo queue, but not
in
pro
solo
play.
queue, there it is. Thank you. In solo queue, but I don't know. Maybe
I mean,
one in, one out on the other.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
that's part of why I like it so much, is because it makes games where people just want out actually possible. I mean, I personally have played at least 20 games
Hmm.
where we have open nexus or like one tower on the map and we've won. For
It's so
perspective,
skewed. It's so
that's the
skewed. You're an ADC main. I'm a jungle main. I hate freaking bounties because I do so much work in the jungle
Yeah.
early game, and then I
fair enough.
scale off, and now all it takes is one bad team fight. That's not even my fault, and the enemy ADC is all fed. It's total
Yeah.
ADC mentality. It's so
I
rigged,
mean, yeah,
man.
you're not wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said,
And I agree.
I've
Like,
played
but
over 20 games.
we're
And
talking in the
done that.
context of, is this a good idea for pro? I think this is almost like as close to objectively good for a solo queue as possible, because like there's no point in FFing, right? It's
Right.
comebackable. Even if you're like not an 80 carry, you can at least like expect there's a silver line, right?
Sure.
Before it was like pretty doomed. Like a small mistake these days where like top lane dies right at level 3 was basically like GGFF, go next, for that player in a lot of cases, because it used to be so punishing. And these days, like you see some teammates like going 0-2, 0-3, and then they'll just come back. They just need win one fight. They make 3 what used to be major mistakes, which are now minor mistakes, and they get 1 major win, right? And they win, or at least they have a great chance of winning. And it also is the reason why we're seeing Jinx and other characters like Aphelios, where you just pick, like, the problem with it in pro play, not in solo queue, in pro play, is you just pick Zeri, Jinx, like hyperscalers, or like what people think are hyperscalers. And you just know, like, hey, if I come back like once or twice, we're good. If I play Kai'Sa, like a bad character in solo queue or whatever,
Oh
I
God.
just get a pick, right? I just jump in. I get 1 pick after throwing my APW like
Mitchell.
14 times and hitting the squishy, right? And then it's a bad character in solo queue, or it's a bad character period. But because of the way objective bounties work, I can play this.
Yeah.
I just need to make 1 good play, right? Be useless
Yeah.
until then.
You said the K
So
word. You said the
You s-
Kaisa word.
Well,
Ah!
we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Don't
yeah,
worry, Mitchell.
my
Don't
point
worry.
is, I really, really wish we could have pro play be separated from solo.
Yeah.
I really, truly wish that because I think it's better for all parties involved. The dream of playing up through Elisande, solo queue, meeting your like heroes, and then like being recognized is almost dead. Okay,
Mhm.
you can just go to Champions Queue, and Champions Queue
Yep.
should be its own patch as well. Is my opinion, and it should be shared with the pro patch. It might happen. It just might take a couple more years. Like Riot has put in things we've talked about. They just take a while.
Yeah.
I think that the objective bounties, realistically, they should be here still in the game. That's good. I do like comebacks. Imagine if we had crowds for some of these. These would be wild.
Oh,
this would
yeah.
be such a sick split. Instead of just like, oh, that's kind of weird. That this is like the 18th time I've seen this across major regions, right? They'll just tune it. They'll figure out the algorithm. They'll tune it like they always have. Maybe teams that are like, actually winning the early games methodically will, be able to do this at MSI. Like objective bounties will be nerfed by then. Is my guess.
Or you just go hard scaling every game. You hope for one miracle good team fight and you win.
I could see that
Oh, so
happening
what
too.
every team is doing right now? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of teams are doing it, and these things are so messy, right? Like sometimes it just freaking works.
And
You just
well, maybe that's why we are saying, we've talked about this before too in top lane, right? People are always like, oh, these tops get fed, but they don't know how to win. But maybe it's because, of objective bounties. I'm speculating here because it doesn't matter because your ADC scales or gets a good fight or whatever. That lead that you had in top lane, well, now you had one bad fight that ADC enemy Jinx gets fed, and now it doesn't matter because Jinx is going to carry the game. I don't know.
yeah, and yeah. Go ahead.
I'll be honest with you, League Dad. I can understand that. I think you're reaching a bit. I think it's because our top laners are bad.
All right.
We've
I
been
think-
saying this for a long time, bro. NA top laners are just not good.
Wow, I was trying to
Well,
help him out a little bit, but yeah.
I think okay, sure. I think we could be executing better, like top
Mhm.
lane and in teams in general. But I also think like it's really hard to actually genuinely get stuff done split pushing. Like I think the enemy team has to actually make some brain lag plays to allow a split pusher to win the game. Like sure, you can lose an inhibitor, right? But like if you're actually losing the game to a split pusher, you lost a team fight. You lost a 4v5 somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like you messed something up pretty badly to lose to a split pushing team. And I think like it's not that ridiculous to think about, right? Like if you're constantly split pushing, right, and the enemy top laner who's been getting booty blasted all game has one good fight, the
Booty
enemy
blast.
Jinx or whatever is gonna carry that game harder than a split pushing Tryndamere
Yeah.
because you can't actually split push as Tryndamere if you don't have map control. That you can't split push anymore, and now you have to group and you're a Tryndamere. You don't want to
Or
group.
if they
I don't
get
want to group.
Baron, then you can't split push anymore. And they
That
just
too. Yeah, there's so many
just
things
send
that make
two
it.
groupers over in like 2 seconds.
Exactly. I actually think like split pushing is just like it's really not easy to execute, and if you do, it requires you to be so stupidly ahead and have constant map pressure that you wonder like what if you just played a normal comp? You have a lead and you have constant map pressure. Just play a normal 5v5 comp and stack drags. So Tryndamere is good champ, overrated in terms of his role though in the game though.
Yeah, and he's been getting a lot of priority. Well, I want to go over to the meta, and the first thing I want to talk about, because I know you want to talk about Kaisa, Mitchell, but
Who?
did you? Yeah, exactly. But I know you specifically. I remember you saying this last episode. You said dead champ. Do you remember?
Oh,
that?
that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
It
Oh,
was
that
you,
was
bro.
Oh.
So, okay,
Hey,
so Zeri
swing and a miss
supposedly
sometime.
got nerfed, and Mitchell himself was like dead champ, and we saw once again 100% presence, and so she got played.
terrible.
She got played 8 times, and she won half of them. So you were half, I don't know, 50% there, right? But she definitely was prioritized by. She was prioritized by the teams. They did not think the nerfs hurt her, but I mean, let's comment on that anyways. Alistair, of course, resident ADC. What did you think of that? Were you surprised that we still kept seeing Zeri?
No, I'm not. I think the champ definitely did get hit hard, and I do think those buffs or nerfs, sorry, were very relevant. I just think the reason we're going to continue to see Zeri is just the way the champion's designed.
Okay.
She doesn't get bullied by every other champ in the game, like almost every other ADC, just because she builds tank items or bruiser items. Sorry. She's a lot safer with her E. She can extend team fights like an Ashe, but better. And because because the laning phase isn't necessarily as big a deal, like it doesn't last as long in pro play, which is Zary's biggest weakness is her laning phase is terrible. It makes her counterplay much slimmer unless you spam dive her, which again, with the teleport changes, makes it a lot harder to punish the Zeri. That's my personal take. I don't think she's that good for solo queue or even at all overall most of the time, except for pro play.
Okay.
And I've been saying that for a while.
Yeah, you have. I was gonna say you stuck to your guns. You have been saying that.
I don't know, man. I still think she's like so whatever.
I've always thought she's whatever. I just
She's
think
so
she's
whatever.
Good. She's good
Yeah.
in pro play because her main counterplay gets avoided very easily.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like as soon as teams they get off this whole like top focus for some reason and they actually go bottom focus, like I think teams should be going, we're gonna see a lot less Zeri because you know what, man, Zeri can like be as annoying as you want in the mid and late game, but like if I have a Jinx or a Caitlyn and I stack drags and I get turret plates against her because I'm just shoving her in all the time, like I'm just gonna click Zeri and she's gonna die. And maybe the Bruiser build is that broken. I don't know, man. Like she lost 5 AD. Like you gotta be crapping me. She lost like 10 armor, and I don't. I'm gonna stick to it. I think pros are overpicking her.
I don't disagree, but I think we're going to continue to see that until they lower the range on her Q. The issue with Zeri is the same issue with Senna. She is for a scaling champion. She has way too much safety.
Yeah.
Because like Ezreal's the same kind of thing. As obviously he doesn't scale as well as Senna or Zeri, but while he has a very weak early game, he has very high mana costs on his escape tool, which on a very long cooldown.
Yeah.
Zeri's is not that long because her Q reduces it. It goes much farther, and it's a lower mana cost. I believe it's pretty low. It's been a couple.
I mean, in general, Zeri doesn't have mana problems.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
Ezreal definitely does. So, yeah.
Zeri Q doesn't cost mana. Right?
Zeri
Yeah, it
Q
doesn't,
costs nothing. Neither does her zap, like right click.
Wow.
Wow.
I think
she
they
doesn't
just
have mana problems.
yeah, she doesn't. I think they really need to just make it so her Q range scales with level.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like that idea.
It's the same thing with Senna.
yeah.
Senna should have base 500 range. I don't know why she is the third highest base range in the game as
Like
a
infinitely
late game
scales.
hyperscaling on a role who gets free reign of their lane. It's a joke.
I also think with Zeri, they need to ham force the crit builds. I think the Bruiser build needs to be absolutely gutted, and the only way to do that is to continue to nerf either her interactions with Triforce passive, or just like continue to nerf her base stats and give her crit scaling. Like I actually thought that's what they were gonna do in this round of nerfs was. Yeah, I expected the 5 base AD nerf or something around there, and I expected the Q damage increase, but I thought it wasn't just going to be flat, it was going to be crit damage scaling, or crit chance scaling or something, just to be like,
Make her W scale off crit or something.
sure, man, just kill the Bruiser build. It's so unhealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just Bruiser items are so insanely strong right now. I mean,
on a
crit items
champ
are
that
good,
mobile,
but
so
Bruiser items are so insane.
As
Especially
I've
with like
been
Death
saying
Stance
since
right
day one of Zeri, she is busted. I've been on this train the whole time without fail.
Yeah.
I only talk in the context of pro play because that's what we're here for. And she is busted, and it is definitely a problem. You see that she's up 4-1 against Jinx players in LPL right now. To be fair, some of those were like a very good team against a bad team, but it is a favorite of like good players, which was skewed too, because it has a lot of skill expression. So, yeah, she could be a bad character, but if all the good players want to play it, and this is the way the meta is played, she is objectively correct to play right now. If the meta changes, or if she gets nerfed again, or something gets buffed that like is actually good against her, then yes, she's a bad pick in that sense. But as far as I'm concerned, like that's too many ifs, right? She's just good. She's being picked 100%.
I have a personal theory about pro players. Sometimes they don't play what's good, they just play what's fun. I'm not even joking. I swear to God, like people just play Kaisa and T1 just plays
Yes, this is
LeBlanc,
true.
Lee Sin
Gao
because it's just
won
fun.
MSI playing Kaisa when she was like one of the worst AD carries like
Mhm.
of any viable AD carry, right? Like maybe 6th or 7th best AD carry, being generous. He won MSI against what was it, Ghost and Barrel or whoever was in the bot lane at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So like honestly, if a pro player is good at it, like they should play it. This is the same reason TSM won with a bunch of comfort pick. They picked Rumble top, dude. Like
Mhm.
With
what?
Ignite.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Like, no one
Zeri's just gonna
picks
be like a
that.
Felios.
It's just
Yeah.
so fun. He's actual 200 years, yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a dumb
And
champ.
at the end of the day, like that matters sometimes more. Like it's the same reason. Like why do pro players in basketball like do certain things they do? Like why did no one do the 3-point strategy until the Golden State
It's
Warriors?
fun to
no one
dunk,
realized.
man.
It's fun to dunk. It's fun to just look cool.
dunk.
Like even if there was an objectively right way to play it this whole time, it took like 80 years of the sport or 70 years of the sport at a
Yeah.
high level to figure out this very basic mathematical strategy that like an
Yeah.
armchair analyst could have told you 20 years ago at least, right?
Yeah. Whatever,
And that-
man.
That's just how the sport's gonna be played. Until
And-
someone's like who has no shame and is also extremely good, but doesn't have the ego to like want to play fun characters, comes along and like shows everyone the way. We're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna play
Yeah.
Kaisa. We're gonna play
Give me,
Aphelios,
give
and
me,
we play
give me
Zeri.
Malphite top every game. Show me the true best League of Legends here. I'm so sick of this stupid Zeri and frickin' Jace, man. Gnar.
You don't want to see my Malphite.
I wanna see
I've
Malphite
seen
I have
top
a
80 carry
nine-
players
every
try to
game.
learn other roles.
I
Okay,
have a-
it's not pretty.
I have a win rate over 90% this year on top lane. That's all I gotta say. I
Oh,
played like
somebody
12
over-
or 13
like, actually-
games.
Somebody
Okay,
OPGG
that's actually
him
pretty good.
right now. And
Does
while-
no one pick Silas into you?
No.
Whatever.
I
So
usually play
stupid.
Malphite. I have one Yorick game where I went 0 and 10, but I
Oof.
1v9 the game with split
sounds-
push because Hullbreaker's a
Sounds like a
balanced
Yorick
item.
game in a nutshell.
Oh,
Game went
That's
40
enough
talking about
minutes and
80
I just
carries. Do you
drooled
have
on
anything
myself.
else for us, League Dad, for the meta?
Yeah, Kaisa. Can
I
we talk
know.
about this stupid
Well-
champion?
Overrated.
well,
Why
I
are
did
you
not
first
think.
picked?
I did not think that she was. I thought we were going to see her mid because we were talking about AP Kaisa and we were seeing her in the bot lane. I know she got buffs, but yeah, let me unleash you guys here. Go ahead. Let's start with Mitchell because I know Mitchell was wanting to really go in on this. So go ahead, Mitchell.
So it was literally Saturday, first game of LCS. I'm
Yeah.
tuned in and they first pick Kaisa and I just lose my shit. I have no idea what people are thinking. Like Jinx barely got nerfed. Aphelios, okay, he did actually get nerfed, but like not to Kaisa levels.
Yeah.
Kaisa, alright, as an ARAM player and as someone who's actually played against it and with it a lot in that mode and just in regular, the champion is not that bad if you can get to your items. But like, oh my god, getting there is so painful.
Yeah.
She is so worthless before she gets her items. It's ridiculous. I think that the mid flex is like you can only do it in very certain matchups, and you it's not very good, and you have to play the Kaisa game. Your whole game is about we're waiting for Kaisa to hit E evolve or W evolve. And honestly, you're waiting for Kaisa to hit 3 items.
Yeah.
And I think with bot lane Kaisa, like if you're going ADC, like you're really over-indexing in how much safety you want and trading off very little damage. Like you have to play as an assassin, and it's just so unreliable. Like you have to actually go in and assassinate people, or you're losing value compared to other ADCs who are going front to back. And I think it's just such a bad way to play the game. I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
I'm not sure I fully agree. I don't. Okay, let me start by saying I don't think B1 Kaisa is great. I think it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I said originally, Kaisa is overrated. At the same time, I do think she has viability because I feel that the AD carry meta right now is much more diverse, and the field was evened out significantly. That being said, first of all, AP Kaisa mid, chill. It's not that good. AP Kaisa mid is going to go the same way that Anivia did. Remember when Anivia got buffed and everyone played her for 2 weeks straight, and then everyone stopped playing her again?
Yeah.
That's going to be Kaisa mid.
A Mumu support, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it really isn't all that. It's fun, and there's going to be a lot of clickbait YouTube videos for the next couple weeks until the hype dies down, but it's really not that good. I also think that you don't actually have to play Kaisa as a diver. Obviously, it's good, especially in a meta that's pretty dive heavy, which what supports how she wants to play. But if you do go the standard, Kraken Slayer Kaisa, you do output a lot of damage. The issue is just being able to right click, and that's why I don't think the B1 Kaisa is good. I think
Yeah,
it's
she was super short range. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's just the range.
Yeah. I mean, I think B1 Kaisa's never good. I think she's been viable for a while just because like she has certain matchups where she can be like played into, and then she's like fine if your draft supports it, right? One of her biggest strengths in pro play is like in pro play, it actually matters a lot to just get a random like one single kill, and she's the best AD, well, one of the best AD carries in the game of just following up like a poked out character and just knocking them out. Like Berserker almost made like a decent play. Okay, maybe, but that wasn't a good example. Basically, she's one of the characters who can be proactive, show off your like AD carry skill, and actually like make a pick happen. Right? No, very few other AD carries can do that. The weird part is that NA played Kaisa as much as LPL did in the previous week, except LPL plays 2 to 3 times as many games. That is not okay. LPL plays Kaisa when like people forget she's a character. So that's not good. And I think the AP Kaisa build is just like it only works if you're like a very good team and have like a lot of other things like functional because it puts a lot of pressure, right? You poke one person out, and if they get annoyed and they engage, you just kill the poked character. It's like it works, right? Sure, but you have to be like T1 to make it work, and I think even T1 lost the game with it. She's hyped. She's super fun. That's why pro players are playing it. She is good in certain scenarios, but that's not B1, and I don't think NA teams generally draft smart enough to do it. Maybe C9 can do it, but that's about it. And maybe like
I really have to harp on the specific scenarios thing, right? Like B1 Kaisa, clearly terrible, and both C9 and I think Immortals or some other team did it, right? And it's obviously terrible, but even just picking Kaisa in general or blind picking it, I think is like early picking Kaisa at any point, right? Like the range is a really big deal, but also like something that I found is like if you just pick a bruiser, like it takes so long for Kaisa to kill bruisers sometimes. Like you really have to have like your full Kraken, LDR or PD or whatever you need to like actually kill them. Like it takes so long, and you have to be up close and really risky to fight these bruisers in the early mid game. And I don't know, man. I would just rather take a Caitlyn, Jinx, Aphelios, Jin, anything that can like contribute from longer range and be safe and still be farming up because, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, Kai'Sa just gets dookied in lane. I feel like sometimes, unless you're actually killing the opponent. Like, oh my god, I just get poked whenever I lane with Kai'Sa by
It's all
anybody
support
who's longer
matchup.
range to me.
That's what
but
every
the pros are
bot
good
lane
enough
matchup
that they
is.
can survive it because of the supports. Because the supports are good enough to keep you alive. And
Yeah.
I guess that's fair. But like, you always
basically
want to
baby the
play.
Kai'Sa up.
You always want to play Kai'Sa with a freaking a melee support, right? So like, I mean, you can
Not
obviously you
necessarily.
could not necessarily. I mean, in pro play you do for sure.
Yep.
I think.
Every game, it's almost always a melee, right? With Kai'Sa.
It's almost always Nautilus, right? And
I'd rather have a Karma.
well,
Honestly.
I would play Karma I think they should play Karma every game,
Yeah.
but pro players have been first picking Nautilus for like 3 weeks now, so
I mean,
I don't know.
Don't get me wrong.
Or JJ's been back for like 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
Nautilus is the second best support, but Karma's the best, and it's not close.
They haven't
Yeah,
done.
see,
I
Karma
think
much
Karma
better.
is very broken, and I still think that Israel Karma lane that popped up for like a week or two, and that was also showing up randomly throughout the whole region, that just disappeared. Still a super busted lane. Honestly, anything Karma is super busted. Um, yeah, but I don't know, man. I don't know where we got here. How did we get to Zeri Kai'Sa every game, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how we got here, man.
Is there
I don't-
any
I don't-
other
I hate NA.
is there any other champ that's not an ADC that you guys wanted to talk about as far as meta goes? I mean, saw more Hecarim. Other
Yeah, I
than
don't know.
that, it was
Tryndamere overrated.
Tryndamere.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final
I
thoughts?
think we kind of talked about it already.
What? Which one? Oh, Tryndamere.
Oh, Tryndamere overrated. Split pushing doesn't actually seem to win anybody the game anymore. It's
Exactly.
just like if you just have a brain, it's so easy to beat. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, this is Super Week coming up, so games start Friday. Also, the last week of the regular season. Is there anything thoughts or anything going into that? Any final thoughts that you guys wanted to mention? We kind of went through the gamut of everything. So if you have anything else, now is the time to speak it. Good?
I
I have one thing to speak. Oh, go ahead.
think TSM's gonna make it. I think they're gonna win this year. I think they're gonna win spring.
Wow.
They're gonna make it
You
into
almost had
playoffs. They're gonna make it all the way to the top. They're gonna 3-0 C9 and TL and 100 Thieves. And they're gonna make it to the finals.
Got me, man. You got me
They're gonna
good.
go to MSI and they're gonna 3-0 Faker at MSI finals.
However,
Okay.
briefly,
Okay.
though, I did want to get you guys' take on All Pro because other regions are coming out for All Pro, and
Oh, that's true.
Right.
ours will be coming out ostensibly soon. Like the split ends soon. So after next week, All Pro is up in the air. We don't have to say it now, but I want the viewers to also start thinking like, who do you think is your All Pro? And
Yeah.
how interesting will the change be? Because this last week, I mean, if C9 like looks like they did against TSM,
Mm-hmm.
things are up in the air. Like
Things are
honestly, if TL went 2-0, I would have been like, Summit's not as untouchable as I thought he was, but I think he will win top lane. All Pro still.
Okay. Yeah,
I'd vote for
definitely
Summit.
something to start thinking about because the season is wrapping up. Okay, well, that's going to wrap it up for us.
One thing to mention before we go.
There it is. Yeah.
One thing. We got it. We got the rivalry back this week, baby. TSM CLG.
Let's go.
Let's go. Who's the actual? Oh, CLG's on the rise. TSM on the rise. Who
That's
is
right.
the
Who's
best
going to
team?
do it? Throwback. I love it. Okay,
Holy
well,
moly,
that's a
how did
great
we
way.
get here.
That is a great way to close out this this episode. I want to thank
TSM.
my co-hosts Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair for always sharing their wise insights. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Peace.